Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Looking at the world of Rotary, Rotary International is the true honest broker as far as the environment is concerned and many other topics and issues going on around the globe today. And we're going to be talking about the Rotary Climate Action Teams, RCATs, which are very new to the world of Rotary. And the gentleman who has led to this creation is Alan Anderson. He's the founder of the Rotary Climate Action Teams, RCATs. And we're going to be talking about climate change, the existential threat to life on planet Earth. Alan, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you. Very glad to be here.
We're certainly glad to have you, and thank you for your years of service and the hard work to create the RCATs. Tell us a little bit about what are the RCATs?
Well, briefly, they're a Rotary club level subcommittee, if you will, that gather Rotarians together who are interested in working specifically on climate issues. And we try to educate our club members, do local projects that are related to climate, and do outreach to other clubs, encouraging them to do the same.
Why is Rotary International, I'm going to leave the logos up here for just a minute, why is Rotary International so important to the issue of climate change, but also environmental quality?
You know, one of the wonderful things about Rotary is that we have Rotary in hundreds of countries and tens of millions of members, and we have global reach, we have credibility. And when you look at, as one example, the efforts of polio, when Rotary started a polio effort just in one club, it grew to the district level and then national and then the international level. It became a major emphasis of Rotary, and we moved from having polio endemic in over 100 countries to now endemic in only 2 countries on the planet, and Rotary, and in particular the Gates Foundation, working to stamp it out in those 2. And we would love to see something like the Rotary Climate Action Team concept grow in the same way and be able to have a major impact on action on climate.
That's absolutely fantastic. Let's look at this, the greenhouse effect. What is it, Alan, and why is it such a concern?
You know, one of the things that scientists actually discovered in the mid-1800s was that we have something called the greenhouse effect, and it's a warm blanket of greenhouse gases that are all around the Earth, and we're very lucky that they are there, because without it, we'd be a frozen rock. But the greenhouse gases trap outgoing heat from the incoming sunlight and reflect it back to the Earth and keep our planet kind of uniformly warmer than it would otherwise be. And so that's a good thing. But now as we dig up and burn ancient fossil fuels, we're adding so much more carbon dioxide to the greenhouse layer that the lower atmosphere is heating up faster than at any time that paleoclimatologists have ever seen.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Go through this chart that we have here and from 1960 into the future of why we have such this warming effect going on planet Earth.
We have, again, climate scientists have done research going back into the distant past. And what they found in the last approximately 800,000 years is that CO2 levels rarely got above 280 parts per million, as you see on the left side of your screen there.
Mm-hmm.
They started measuring in the late 50s. It was at about 315, and we have marched just steadily upward now, and we're at 417 parts per million. And the sobering thing about this is that's about a 50% increase over that 280 in just these last 60 years. And that's the fastest rise that they've ever seen. And the last time we were at 417 was about 3 million years ago. And they estimate that sea levels were 60 feet higher and temperatures much warmer, a place we don't want to go.
Yeah, and because if it goes there, then most of us will not be around anyway to see the after effects of that. Looking at these hottest years, it seems like we're in the middle of all this right now.
Indeed, it's going back into the climate record, even over the last 10,000 years since the end of the last ice age. We are now at the hottest temperatures globally that we've seen. And this is the 10 hottest years. And actually, the last 5 years have been the hottest years ever recorded on the planet.
I tell you, that really takes your breath away, realizing of what we're doing to ourselves as human beings. And of course, we just have to surmise, and science proves it, that we are having a very dramatic negative impact on the environment. Looking at the atmospheric stabilization, what does this mean to us as humans? And why do we really need to pay attention to this?
Well, one of the things that is true in the simplest terms is the more CO2 we add to the atmosphere, the hotter it's going to get. And we're already melting the ice almost everywhere with just the modest temperature rise we have seen. And so scientists are projecting, what do we need to do to bring CO2 levels in the atmosphere down? And these are actually carbon emissions each year in billions of metric tons. And so we're currently emitting, 6 billion, say, metric tons annually. And the different pathways that they show us here are different paths that we could take. And the thick orange line is business as usual. If we just keep doing what we're doing, not only are we going to keep adding CO2, but we're going to add at even a greater rate. And then the other pathways are if we at some point realize that we have to bring these emissions way down by burning less fossil fuels. And the bottom line, the bottom yellow line, the 350 parts per million ceiling, that's what would be required of us to bring emissions actually below zero. And how do you do that? I'll mention that in a moment. But that would be a pathway that we really need to strive for to keep a livable planet for future generations.
And I think that's what you're doing as far as the RCATs, and you're really going towards the ideal, understanding we may be in the middle, but business as usual is just untenable, correct?
Completely untenable.
Okay. Looking at this is what we're seeing more and more around the globe. I get daily reports from the World Health Organization, United Nations Development Program, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, many organizations. And they're saying that the impact on agriculture and food supply is becoming actually drastic around the globe. And so what we're seeing here, I think, Alan, you're saying this is really almost becoming some of the norm, and maybe what will be the norm in the future if we really don't change and go towards that ideal. Is that correct?
That's correct. And one of the I guess ironic things about climate change is places that are typically dry, like our Great Plains, and other places that are typically wetter, like the Southeast. Dry places are going to get even drier, and wet places are going to get even wetter. So in the case of the Southeast, their problem is not drought, it's going to be torrential rains and flooding like they have not seen before. And the West will probably have more and more drought.
Yeah, which means more and more wildfires and catastrophic loss that way, where flooding is equally catastrophic, but you're losing everything when you're at that. Looking at Rotary International, quickly, Alan, go through the 6 program areas we've had before, and then of course we had the big bright green shiny one at the bottom, which is this new Rotary focus.
For many years, the Rotary International Executive Board and trustees have had 6 major experience areas, focus areas: promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, helping mother and child health, literacy and education, and economic development. And one of the things that we've noticed is that every one of these can go backward if we don't address climate change. And so just recently, in fact, I think 2 months ago, Rotary International Board and trustees added for the first time in a decade a 7th focus area, supporting the environment, because supporting the environment, it is the environment and our climate that will support efforts in all of those other areas. And one of the very sobering things is our tremendous effort on polio can actually be reversed if we don't address climate change.
Yeah, and I think this fits perfectly with the 6 earlier focus areas, Alan. And thank you again for your dedication to bringing about this 7th focus area. But this is what we don't want to have, Alan. And we have a few photographs of this. Why don't we want this?
Well, if we simply continue as business as usual, if we keep burning fossil fuels, we will really ruin a friendly climate for all future generations for probably 1,000 years. And the problem is really us, because we're the ones choosing to burn all those fossil fuels. We need to make decisions to change our way of life. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to live in caves, because we can generate clean, renewable energy while eliminating burning fossil fuels. And we can be driving electric cars, and General Motors just announced they're coming out with 19 new models, trucks, cars, and SUVs, all electric in the next several years. So that's all very hopeful.
Yes, we're going to go out on this image right here of the wind and solar, these renewable energy sources. What do you see for the expansion of the RCATs over the next 5, 10, or 15 years? And you've got about 20 seconds to do all that, Alan. You got to be quick.
We're very hopeful that RCATs will catch on with more and more clubs in more and more countries, and it'll be a grassroots effort to make a real difference.
That's absolutely fantastic. Alan Anderson, founder of the RCATs, thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
Thank you.
Looking at the globe and the impacts that humankind is making on the environment is something that Rotary International has been cognizant of for many, many years. But it took a concerted effort to move this idea forward. So becoming the 7th idea program area for Rotary International is dealing with the environment. Alan Anderson, the founder of the Rotary Climate Action Teams, RCATs, is the one that helped bring this to Rotary and to the world. And he's going to be talking about climate change and the impacts that it's having on the world. So, Alan, again, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm going to move right into our discussion, Alan, and this is about your Rotary Climate Action Team, the RCAT, or RCATs as we're calling it. Tell us why these are so important and how do they actually operate?
Well, Sam, one of the things that has been interesting in giving public education talks on climate change is discovering the percentage of people who kind of know that climate is a problem, but they don't know enough about it and they're not really doing anything about it. So when we started a climate action team in our club, one of our first efforts is to educate our own club members. And we do that on an ongoing basis with periodic updates on the climate to our club members. Then we're also doing local projects. And in our case, our first project was to install 2 EV charging stations. And those are the first 2 public ones in our town. And then we are also inviting other clubs to join the Rotary Climate Action Team Network. And I do public speaking tours of other clubs roundabout to share with them the climate challenge and why they should be starting a climate action team in their own club. And then in our case, our city has a climate action plan. So our Rotary Club is working to support the city's climate action plan in any way that we can.
Now, why is it so important? I will leave this up to have Rotary clubs involved in doing this, both within local communities and globally. What's special about Rotary?
You know, Rotary is really one of the unique organizations in that we have Rotary clubs in most of the countries of the world. We have, I think, 34,000 clubs across the world. And we have people from all types of backgrounds, but especially we have a lot of business people involved in Rotary. And when you look at our effort with polio and all the good that that's done, we would like to use Rotary's global reach and credibility and capital, social capital, if you will, to bring that same type of effort to work on climate action.
Yeah, and addressing the climate really is a social good. But looking at the Rotary Climate Action Team, tell us a little bit about the button we have here and why this is really so apropos to where we are as we're moving through the 21st century.
You can see the button there, and in the background is a globe of the Earth. And so frequently people say, well, you know, if what we're doing doesn't work, we'll just go to plan B. But in fact, if we get this wrong, there is no planet B for us to go to. And so we're trying to emphasize to folks that this is really an urgent issue. It needs action right now. And there is no other choice besides addressing climate and bringing down greenhouse gas emissions rapidly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Alan, and you shared this image because there really is no plan B. Either we're on planet Earth and we're living, a balance of all living beings, plants, animals, biome, as well as human beings, or there is no planet. And so that's something we really need to be aware of and to work towards to make sure we are protecting the planet. But looking at this is something we mentioned earlier, is about this 7th area of focus. Why did supporting the environment become that 7th area of focus?
One of the things that's been happening, especially over the last 50 years, since climate change really made itself known on the scene, if you will, more and more Rotary clubs across the country and across the world have been asking Rotary International to add the environment. And there's a group called the um, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Climate Action Group, or SRAG, which was formed a couple of years ago, and they have been working very hard to get a seventh area of focus. And our Rotary Club, our climate action team, just added our voice to the fight, and we're happy to say that with all of those people working together, and with a special credit to the SRAG team, Rotary International has added this seventh area of focus. And when you look at the other 6 areas, you realize that we can fail in every one of them if the climate becomes unfriendly. So it's the supporting the environment supports all other 6 focus areas.
Yeah, I think that's really very, very important. But talking about something very concrete, a real project, tell us a little bit about this for your town and why this is more than just being symbolic.
So one of the visible projects that our club has done in our local community is to add 2 EV charging stations. And you see this one connecting soon. Both that one and the second one are both up and running now and serving electrical vehicle owners. And this is more than symbolic because we have to transition away from gas-powered vehicles. And one of the biggest roadblocks based on research to people being willing to buy an electric vehicle is range anxiety. They don't know how far they can travel on a charge, and they want to know, are there EV charging stations wherever I'm going to need one? So the more communities that add EV charging stations, that will spur the sales and growth of electric vehicles. So we're hopeful that this too will become a trend, and we'll have more and more stations.
Yes, that's absolutely fantastic. Spreading the climate action message around the world, this is something that early on you really wanted to have this truly international, as Rotary is truly international. So looking at these mix of clubs, why is it so interesting but important to have this type of mix instead of just having it in the United States or Japan or South Africa or wherever it may be? Why do we need this type of mix?
Well, the type of mix is really critical because no one country, even a big country like the US, where we still actually are number 1 on a per capita basis for CO2 emissions. Although China is number 1 overall, we're still number 1 by a long shot on a per capita basis. So we need not only our country, but countries across the world all to be working on reducing emissions in their country. And here's the little acorn of Northfield RCAT down in the left corner. And since then, really pretty much in the last year, it's grown to towns and Rotary clubs in Turkey, Uganda, Sri Lanka, Italy, Canada, and many other cities in the US. And it's our hope that it'll keep growing because we need that global reach and a real movement on the part of all of Rotary to make a difference on climate.
Well, once you put this in the Rotary world, which you've already done now in a very dramatic way, things are going to move. But networking the world, why must we network the world?
Any one country really can't do it by themselves. And so one of the beauties of Rotary is that we're all connected to clubs all over the world. We have one international Rotarian magazine, and that's actually how we started the interest from other countries, by having articles in the international magazine. And if we can get clubs everywhere to be influencing their own members, to begin to take action, and also to begin to impact their governments, hopefully we'll actually get on track with not only the Paris Accords, but even more aggressive goals than the Paris Accords.
Right. I think this is absolutely fantastic. We're going to be looking at some slides here. Some of this it's almost gross, Alan, but very dramatic. So just tell us what we're looking at here. The one with, all the fossil fuels, the smog, the CO2 emissions, and then the juxtaposition. If we don't have all that, we're using more renewables, and we really are starting to take care of the environment as we humans should be doing.
Yes, there's going to be several dramatic slides that show a typical day with air pollution created by power plants, like coal burning power plants, and also automobiles. And then on the right-hand side, what it can look like when the sky is clear. And some people might say, well, really, what difference does that make? I mean, we have to have industry and so forth. But it's not a trade-off of either or. You can have clean air and a vibrant economy. And the clean air is more important than aesthetics, because the United Nations estimate that somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million people die every year just from air pollution. And the associated cost with all of those illnesses is tremendous.
Yeah, when you look at these photographs here, I mean, it really is dramatic. And these are very different cities, actually on different continents. And you can see the difference that all is happening as far as when you have the heavy smog day, and then when you have a day when it's actually clear. But looking at the future, Alan, and we're going to leave this up with your logos. What do you see as we need to be doing now to make sure that the Rotary Climate Action teams really are working? And you have about, again, 20 seconds to do that.
Well, I would encourage everyone to officially join SRAG as a membership function of Rotary International. And then in your own Rotary Club, start a Rotary Climate Action team. We started ours with 2 people, and now we have 18, including college presidents and bank presidents and the CEO of the hospital. And they're fully engaged, and we're hoping to make a difference and spread the word.
Thank you, Alan Anderson, the RCATs, as we create the Emerald Planet.
Thank you.
Looking at the world of Rotary and the environment seems to be a perfect match, because Rotary does span the globe, 35,000 different clubs, now almost 1.4 million members, and virtually 200 countries and territories around planet Earth. But we have someone who's actually taking that global reach, taking it local, and then putting it back out to the Earth. This is John G. Mathers. He's the coordinator for the Rotary Climate Action Team Network, RCAT, and a host of other things. He's really been very, very active in Rotary International. But John, welcome, and we're going to be talking about bringing communities together to address the climate crisis. And you've been a leader in that. Thank you for being with us on the Emerald Planet TV.
Pleased to be here.
Say, talking about the Rotary Climate Action Team, and we're going to talk about the SRAG a little later, but tell us about that and why the Rotary Club of San Francisco.
Well, the Rotary Club of San Francisco, the second oldest Rotary Club in the world, out of 35,000, has been very active in promoting where we ought to go and what we ought to deal with. And good, bad, or indifferent, we are in California, and we tend to be pushing the envelope when it comes to the environment and addressing climate change. And so that's why when I saw what Alan Anderson was doing in Minnesota and read the article about him in the Rotarian, I said, this is fabulous. We need to do something like that, but we need to do it where clubs can talk to each other. So that was the impetus behind setting up the network of Rotary clubs.
Now, looking at the Rotary Climate Action Team and teams, because it's in the plural, why the network, which you are the coordinator for that network? So why have a network?
Well, it's wonderful if a group in a particular club gets enthusiastic about doing a project or a series of projects, something with their community or in their business or whatever. But there are people all over the planet that are doing things in Rotary clubs. Wouldn't it be great if they had a way of sharing with each other what they're doing and best practices and understanding the differences that can be made? So that's what I want to understand what other people are doing. And if someone's doing it better than I am, terrific. Or if we can do it together.
That's the whole thing of the Emerald Planet, is that we're actually featuring the solutions, as we call it, the best practices. And that's why I think it's really critical that we work together as far as Emerald Planet, International Foundation, Emerald Planet TV, and the work that you're doing with Rotary Climate Action Teams. Now, looking at this cloud bomb going over here, where did that term come from? And why are we now calling a cloud
it's actually
severe storms a bomb?
It's actually called a rain bomb because of the amount of heat in the ocean. It's pulling up more moisture, and it's pulling it out of the ground as well. I mean, dramatically out of the ground. That's why you have droughts. But then what happens is it concentrates it, and it's concentrating it in things that just simply drop 4 or 6 or 8 inches of water in a few minutes. This is a still picture, but when you actually see it happen, it is scary. I mean, it really looks like a mushroom cloud, but it's inverse. It's all collected in and then dropped down in large quantities. It's something that was very, very rare 20 years ago, is now becoming very common.
The interesting thing about that, John, I've put 3 rain gardens in my backyard here in Washington, D.C., along with 7 new trees, and put it in on a Friday. Sunday night, we had 9 inches of rain in less than 2 hours. Those rain gardens and the new trees grabbed all of that water and sequestered it in the ground. It was absolutely amazing. Been having floods in my garage. Not a drop of water went into the garage out of this, but this is what we've been seeing here now over the last couple of years. Going to the glaciers and also the warming climate, how is that impacting things on Mother Earth, John?
Well, I think most people understand this at this point, but I don't know. For many years, I did business all over the world. And I would fly back from Europe regularly. And every year over the last 30 years, I'd go over Greenland and see more and more water on the surface of Greenland, more and more lakes, more and more of the glaciers that were disappearing. And this is this is what's happening. They're disappearing faster than we can address, which means that we are going to have an increase in the height of water worldwide, which is going to create floods. They're already looking at $100 billion just to protect downtown Manhattan. It's phenomenal. We haven't really come up with a solution. We are really into the idea that if it isn't a crisis, we're not going to try and fix it.
Yeah, when I was in Bhutan a few years ago, I was meeting with the Minister of the Environment, and he says if we don't address climate change and do it now, he says we may not be here by 2050. We won't have to worry about my country of Bhutan. We'll be somewhere else. And that's happening across the South Pacific and many other countries. But what are we looking at here? The dynamics of people and internally displaced people. IDPs are happening more and more now because of climate than even terrorist activities.
Yeah, this is the saddest part, is that the people that are the most vulnerable. Rotary has been serving people all over the world, the people that are in the most need. And those people are the ones that are most impacted by climate change. Just look at what's happening in Bangladesh. Look at what's happening in Jakarta. Look at the areas that are sinking or being flooded. You're talking about perhaps up to 1 billion people having to move somewhere in order to address their need for climate change. Okay, so now what do you do with food? What do you do with clean water? You now have salt in all of the areas in southern Bangladesh where, because the oceans have come in and taken over the aquifer, so they can't plant enough food. What do you do in order to address that? It's a huge problem that we have to be addressed, not just like you did. You put in plants, you put in new soil, you made it rich, the soil rich, so that it could gather the water. You can't go and do industrial farming and expect that it's going to feed all these people. There's just too many other problems associated with it. It has to be really thought through.
Yeah, we have to rejuvenate the soil, that is for sure. And so we talk about water quality. We really have to talk about soil, air, and
Yep.
water quality as a package. And we need to address it that way. And that's how I look at these gardens and the 7 new trees put in, taking the backyard and turning it into an urban forest. Well, we need to be doing urban forestry and rural forestry all over the globe. But this is what we're fighting against, John. What are we seeing here, and how do we have to get away from this absolutely yesterday, not tomorrow?
Well, what's interesting to me is the fossil fuel industry that supports our world today, the coal industry that is producing all of this effluent, is being subsidized to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, whereas renewables are this last year 51 billion. So if we don't do something to eliminate the carbon in the atmosphere, it's going to overwhelm our systems, and we're going to have more weather issues. We're going to have more droughts. We're going to have more of all the things that we now see in our environment. So anything we can do to eliminate carbon, that we can do to eliminate the fossil fuels, that we can move towards renewables, electric, wind, all of which is happening. But we need to have it happen a whole lot faster than it is.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. Looking at this, we need to have this happening yesterday,
Yep.
not just tomorrow, and we have to move forward because this is what we're looking at. If you look across northern Africa, northern China, many other places, even in a country as rich and fertile as Australia, is having these scenes that we're looking at right before us. So, how do we need to look at the world through the eyes of the RCATs? And what do we need to be doing so that we don't have to have this happening and expanding the deserts across all of the earth?
Well, so what you're doing by planting trees is wonderful. One of our RCATs in Kampala, in Uganda, has planted 70,000 trees in the last 6 months. What they're doing is they're recapturing and preventing the desert from moving, which is wonderful. Oh, now you have an image there of the fire in Paradise in Northern California. We also have a group in Assisi, one of our clubs there, that has put together something to address the inequalities in our environment, so that systemic racism, systemic issues of access to empowerment, access to water, all of that can be addressed at the same time that you're addressing climate change. And they've gone out to all of the other cities in Italy to promote the Assisi Manifesto. You have a picture here of
getting
feed
away
lots.
from industrial farming. How is that going to help, John?
Well, you're talking about in two different kinds of industrial farming. If you're looking at feedlots, what you're looking at is the whole issue of meat production and what it takes to, in the way of water and land, to produce the meat, and the impact of methane on our environment. Methane is much more dangerous than carbon. And what you have now is people all over the world who are looking at, if I can have meat in my diet on a regular basis, it shows that I'm coming up in the world.
Right.
Rather than looking at what's best for the planet, looking at what's best for us. And
I'm
here
going to
you
leave
have,
this up, John. We have only about 20 seconds. What do we see for the growth of RCATs over the next 5, 10, or 15 years? We have to be quick.
we need to network. We need to work as one, not separately. We need to find ways to connect every possible way we can.
That's fantastic. This is John G. Mathers of the RCATs as we create the Emerald Planet.
Thank you.
Looking at the world of Rotary. Rotary International covers the globe, 35,000 clubs, almost 1.4 million members, nearly 200 countries and territories. And we have what's called the Rotary Climate Action Team. This is something that's been evolving for a number of years. And the gentleman I'm getting ready to introduce, John G. Mathers, has been helping mightily with that. But also there's what's called the SRAG, and I'm going to let him talk about that. He is the chair for Environmental Sustainability, Rotary Action Group, SRAG, and then also the coordinator for the RCATs that we have talked about. John, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell us about the SRAG and why that is so important, and why do you need that as a complementary and in collaboration with your RCATs?
Well, SRAG is, and I'm the chair of our district, and there are a number of districts around the world. So it's a smaller area, but SRAG is the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, is a group that was set up by Rotary to support the environment, to look at the big picture, to support global action and projects on a global basis, but also to be able to come up with projects that can be addressed at the club level. And it's been very successful and very powerful in changing the way Rotary looks at climate and looks at the environment, and actually has changed the focus of Rotary over the last few months, so that environment is one of the key ingredients in what we're focusing on now as Rotary.
Yeah, and that's the seventh focus area, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. And your Rotary Climate Action Team and teams, in the plural, are very important to that. But we're going to go through some areas that look at it globally as far as the environment is concerned. And of course, Rotary is global, and that's why there's a perfect fit. Tell us what we're looking at here, and then we're going to look at what this may be looking like today.
Well, you're looking at the person I'm named after. My middle name is Grinnell, and the gentleman on the left is George Bird Grinnell, who started the Audubon Society and set aside Glacier National Park. And he had a glacier named after him. And I went to see the glacier, and this is what it looks like now. It's gone. And that is a very sad affair.
I'm going back before between the two of these, John. And looking at this, which is your namesake, discovered and had this named after him, and to look at this today, I mean, we say this is beautiful, it's pristine. Why are we concerned about the environment? So the question is, John, why would your ancestor be concerned about what he's looking at right here?
Well, you have little over 1% of the water on the planet is fresh, and 3/4 of that is held in glaciers, or was held in glaciers. A good portion of it is polluted, A good portion of the groundwater is now disappearing. So not having the glaciers and not being able to capture the water in the glaciers and have it available is going to impact our planet substantially.
Looking at global temperatures, this is something that is of great concern to scientists, now more and more to citizens who are becoming aware of these negative impacts. But looking at this picturesque chart before us, there's a dire warning in this, correct?
Absolutely. I even have it on my business card.
Tell us a little bit about this. Why is this such a dire situation?
Well, you have the average temperature. The average temperature over the last 10 years have been the hottest that have ever been recorded. That's over the last 10 years. And it looks like this year is going to be the hottest on record again. You can't sustain that. The planet is looking to create balance for itself. And part of that process is to eliminate those elements that aren't supportive of that balance. And one of those elements could actually be various species, including mankind.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Looking at this complex picture in front of us, tell us what we're seeing and how are each of these negative impacts as far as the quality of the environment and how this is affecting the life living of all beings on planet Earth, which are the plants, the biome, the microscopic beings, as well as humankind.
Well, I don't, I think we only have a few minutes. This is a 3-hour conversation, but permafrost, as an example, is now giving way and releasing methane. Methane is much more serious than carbon as a pollutant. Land transportation. If we're not using electric, we're missing the opportunity to be able to reduce the transportation carbon output. Industrial processing, chemicals, and putting pollutants into the air. Landfills that are now overwhelming, and you have a massive amount of plastic out in the ocean that is now killing off fish. On and on and on. There's a lot of issues. Let's put it that way.
And we just need to be dealing with it. I like this. This goes back. I've lived much of my life in Japan and the Far East, and looking at this classical style image from the Japanese Meiji era. Tell us what we're looking at here and why is it so dramatic, and what is this image really telling us as far as the environment in the 21st century?
Well, many years ago, Bucky Fuller wanted to put domes over cities, and he came up with a concept and proposed it. We can't put domes over cities. We can't protect ourselves from the environment that's around us. We can't protect ourselves from the dangers that are out there that we're creating through our mismanagement of our planet. So this is a perfect representation. It may look like the bubble is going to survive, but it's not likely. So we need to operate differently.
Absolutely. We've got to change ourselves. Looking at this, going to this kind of comprehensive view, if you will, as far as the environment, putting us in the middle of all this, what do we have to be doing, John?
Well, number one, you need to be educated. You can pick any one of these areas to get involved in and make a difference in, but you need to be educated about what it is that's happening around you, and especially about environmental justice, especially about the fact that there's an unequal environment that we're existing in, and that there are people at the bottom of the chain that need to be supported. We need to have some kind of balance. And then, having been educated, you can pick an area that fits for you where you can make a difference. And that's what we're after with the RCATs. That's what we're after with SRAG. We want to make a difference and have individuals feel like they have the power to do that.
Yeah, and also collaboration with Emerald Planet Television. We're going to get this story out there as far as the solutions and the best practices. And I think that's what you're talking about. And most of these, what are the best practices in renewables? What are the best
Yes.
practices in biodiversity, political action, ag, health, all these other different areas? But getting to the SRAG and also with your RCATs, why are these so important? Now, I want to go back to my original question. Why is it so important that there's collaboration between the SRAGs and the RCATs?
Well, we already are collaborating. The SRAG has got the big picture. They're operating through Rotary International. We're down in the clubs with RCAT and building up the contacts, the network, the people, the commitment, and the actions. Most of all, the actions. Big projects coming from SRAG, community projects coming from the RCATs, and building together so that what we can do is actually make a difference and use Rotary clubs and all of those 1.4 million Rotarians to actually commit to making a difference on the planet. If we can make a difference in polio in the last 30 years and get it down to there's only a few cases left on the planet, if Rotary can do that, we can certainly address this and make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Looking at this, climate change is happening and urgent action is required. Why is it something that we should have done yesterday? And we need to be very concerned about it today, but we just can't wait for tomorrow. So, why is this something we need to have done yesterday?
Well, I don't know what to say. We've been aware of it for the last over 50 years. Actually, in the 1890s, people identified climate change as an issue, but we haven't taken action on it. People tend to want to take action when there's a crisis, rather than when they see the projection of where things are going, where activities are going. We don't have a choice about it. If the planet gets hotter and we have more severe weather patterns and we have a flooding of major cities that's going to cost billions of dollars just to be able to address, not to be able to fix, but address, we either have to find another planet to move to, or what we need to do is find a way of changing the way in which we operate so that what we can do is allow our children and grandchildren to live at least somewhat close to the world that we have right now.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. These are some of the impacts, but we're running out of time, John. The world, the globe, Mother Earth really is in our hands. So, what do you see through the SRAG and through the RCATs, Rotary International, that we must be doing now? And give us three ideas that you think would be the most cogent out of hundreds, thousands of other ideas. What do we need to be? Three things that each of us need to be doing.
Well, number one, you need to vote. You need to look at what it is that we need to be doing, and you need to vote. So that what happens is your voice is heard. You need to talk to other people in your family, in your community, and in your club about what you can do at home. Something as simple as reusing plastic bags. What you can do in your community, such as working together to bring solar to people who are less fortunate. And what you can do in your business, which could be something as simple as refitting, or it could be how you use electricity on the road. If you had an electric vehicle, or if you combined your travel with other people, or you went out for one trip to do three things instead of three trips to do one thing each, all of that would make a huge difference. Start where you can. Start wherever you can.
That's absolutely fantastic. This is John C. Mathers of the SRAG and the RCATs as we create the Emerald Planet.